Hey there, since we're really in the thick of things, I thought that it might be helpful to you if I produced another video. Actually, it'll wind up being two videos because YouTube won't let me publish one as long as I need to talk about all of this. But I'm publishing some videos on this full literature search, and this is the assignment that is due on Sunday. But there's a little secret at the end of video 2, so stay tuned. But the full literature search assignment page, like you see here, can be found in the Dropbox under the folder of the same title. There's a link to it there. The first part of this is really kind of an extension of what you've already done, so you can use your old work, but make sure you clean it up and make it really polished. You've got the title page, APA, you've got the interdisciplinary problem. This needs to be approved. So if you don't have an approved topic yet, get that done right away, please, because otherwise if you do all of the work for this and it's not approved, it may not wind up being approved, and that would wind up with a lot of work done in vain, right? And hopefully what I said in my comments before about your disciplines will help you here. So you've got all of that. Moving down, though, I want to talk a little bit about actually producing the annotated bibliography or the annotated reference page, okay? So that's what we're doing here. So let me show you an example. And this is how references are always done, all right, in APA. You always have the authors and then the year. And notice it's author last name, comma, initials, period, next author. If you have more than one, you use an ampersand, year in parentheses, title of the article, pay attention to the capitalization. Most of it's in lowercase, right? Not after the colon, not at the beginning, proper nouns or exceptions, obviously. The journal article does use caps like titles typically do, and it's italicized. And then the volume number is italicized. The issue number is not italicized. It's in parentheses when it exists. Comma, page numbers, DOI. DOI is the permanent address of the article. And most articles today have this. Older ones may not have this. There's another way to do this when you can't find a DOI, so I'll show you that in just a couple minutes. All right? So let's see what else is actually required here. So you're going to have an annotation with 3 paragraphs. All right? The first one's an introduction. The second one is an evaluation. And the third one is called the conclusion, and I would call it maybe the application. All right? So in the introduction, you're going to talk about the theory that's being presented and who the authors are and why they've got the right to present what they're presenting, more or less. The evaluation is going to be a description of the way the authors came about, reaching their conclusion. So what kind of research is it? In other words, did they form an experiment? Did they collect data in a certain way? Is it just theoretical? Did they review literature? How did they get this information? That's what you're telling me about here. As well as kind of doing some what it's calling critical evaluation. Critical doesn't mean you're criticizing, but it means you're thinking about it critically, thinking about what the limits of it are. Do they consider other perspectives and kind of discuss those things and so forth. And then the conclusion is really an overall assessment, particularly in terms of how it relates to your discussion in your paper. Okay, so let's look at that in real time. So here is my author, Perfetti, the year, right, the title, journal, so forth. Okay, Perfetti is considered an expert in the area of reading comprehension. Okay, how did I know that? Glad you asked. I searched him online, and I knew his discipline, and I had his full name, obviously, so I just went searching, and a lot of researchers have something like this. So that will do a lot of work for you. But I don't want to say everything about this person. I really want to talk about how this person is qualified to speak to this subject. So that's what I did here. He's an expert in the area of reading comprehension. He's developed models, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So in the article, while he mainly discussed experiments based on different kinds of reading tests, he also involved the study of neuropsychology. So he himself is a bit interdisciplinary, although I'm still going to consider him to be part of the discipline that this journal is part of. So literacy, which I would just put under education in this case. Okay, so what did he do? I'm going to describe that here. It's a review of a lot of relevant literature and so forth. And I'm not sure this is true, but to give the critical thing, I just put this in. Of course, yours should be true because it's based on your real research, but because Perfetti has developed his ideas over time, not much attention is given to competing views. So that's one way I could talk about the limitation. This is all based on my research, so you don't really care much about this, and I'm just putting it here for example. Why is it helpful or not helpful to my paper? I describe that here. All right? But in this case, another article, there are 3 authors, and maybe I didn't find as detailed information about the authors online. So here's something else that I can do. When I searched out the article on the database, I get something like this that I can click on. And notice that the authors' names and several other things are in blue. That means I can click on them and get information. So when I click on the first author, I find out this is the only cataloged article in this database that she's participated in. So that doesn't tell me a lot about her. When I click on this one, I discover that in fact she has published many articles, and I can look through the titles and see what they're about, and I find out that there are several things about vocabulary in here. And another thing is that typically journals, almost always books, magazine articles, whatever you find, there's probably a little biography of the author at some point. So here I find out that they are all associated with the City University of New York, but this Leslie Crago teaches apparently the Borough of Manhattan Community College, whereas Airy is at the Graduate Center and Hart is at the Graduate Center and looks like maybe still studying at the Graduate Center. Okay, so that gives me some information also that I can go back and say Crago teaches at the Borough of Manhattan Community College in New York, and using my critical thinking skills, I said this is likely where the experiment discussed in the article was conducted. So it was done in her classes, but Airy, I guess, is really the vocabulary expert, and so I can say something about that. In this case, this was a controlled experiment, so I talk about the kinds of groups that they had, what they found, and then again, how is it helpful for my research. All right? So, this will show you essentially the length that you're going for the annotation. And by the way, something really, really important, do not cut and paste things from the abstract or article and plop them in here. That's called plagiarism. Don't just change the words a little bit and do that. That's still plagiarism. You just had that module and quiz, so that's why we put it here, okay? This is your wording summarizing or addressing the questions that are asked in the document that I just showed you. And you don't need outside information about this article, so don't go someplace else and get someone else's opinion and plop it in here. This is your reading of the article. All right? So I'll come back to show you a little bit more, but thank you, and see you.